The following live broadcast is rated ESV PG. I mean, it's video games. We get intense. How you all doing on tonight's show? We're going to be talking about video games, the impacts they've had on our lives, and everything to do with them from the early days going up to now, but mostly the classics, because those are what inspired us most. So stay tuned. We want to hear about your favorite video games, what you like to do, what you remember most and most fondly. So be there for that. You guys ready?
Ready.
Let's do it.
All right. Go a little fucking further. You're gonna get this. You're gonna get this. I gotta get this. I gotta get this. I can't do it. Hey guys. Oh shit! I didn't even take this down. Fuck. God damn it. All right. Hey everybody. How you doing? These games just get on my nerves and everything. Welcome to Ear Shoulder Voice. I wasn't even up to anything. I'm playing so much. I'm not handling anything well. But here we are. Welcome to Ear Shoulder Voice. My name is Keith Liff, and we got all our guests, all our panelists right here. I'm gonna have to turn this off. There we go, so we can actually see them. It's been and I've got a dog. This is not my day right now. This is not my day going well. How is everybody doing today? We got everybody on here. We've got, of course, Gabe, our specialist. Brandon is returning. We haven't seen you in a while. Welcome back, Brandon. Brad, and our special guest, Jeremy, on here, Chrono. Good to have you on here, Jeremy.
Hello.
All right, so we're not going to go through the whole thing. We're getting us all on here because we're all into video games. We all played them. We all enjoyed them as much as we possibly could. So let's start up here. We're going to start the earliest video game you remember playing. Let's go around.
Oh, it was definitely Tetris.
It was
On
Tetris,
the
not
old
like
NES.
on the regular Nintendo. What about you, Gabe?
Yeah, I mean, I went back all the way, so I mean, it would definitely be Pong or anything from the Odyssey days or Atari 2600.
Odyssey. I don't think most people even know what an Odyssey is.
Yeah. So,
Honestly.
yeah. So
Now, was it the original?
it was, yeah. So Odyssey was a big, almost like a computer. It had a cartridge system in it, and then it had a full-size sort of keyboard in it on the front that you could type. But you could also overlay maps on it that went specifically with those games to give it sort of interact, if you press this or whatever. It still had Atari graphics and things like that. But I remember one of the first games that I saw was my uncle-in-law or something like that. There was an AC/DC version of it was a game for the Odyssey.
I've not seen the AC/DC.
Yeah,
That sounds dope.
it
I didn't
is.
find it. What about you, Brad?
I'm gonna look it up. Yeah.
First system I ever played, man, believe it or not, was a fucking Commodore 64.
Hey, Commodore was the shit computer back in the day. It really was.
Yeah, man. Well, played that fucking Ghosts and Goblins on it, man. Fucking great, man.
Yeah,
I mean, well, it wasn't great, but as a kid, it was fucking great.
Hey, it's
you
still
know.
great. Ghosts and Goblins was a very hard but
That
great
was
game.
the first game I played, man. Fucking Ghosts and Goblins, man.
So did you quit playing video games after that one? Because that was hard.
Oh, fuck no, I never quit, man. I just kind of...
That would have just made me not do it. And what about you? Finally, our guest Jeremy. How you doing, Jeremy? Your life is video games, really. So
Technically, yes, yeah. Working within the industry, even if it is on the outskirts of that. But yeah, the first game that that I remember distinctly playing is either Spider-Man on the Atari 2600 or Congo Bongo on
Yes.
the Commodore.
Yes,
Congo Bongo. I remember
Congo Bongo. It was awesome
Yeah.
because it was a 3D Donkey Kong.
Yeah.
basically.
It was like the isometric perspective really messed you up as you tried to jump across the gaps. Yeah, it was not fun. But I never owned those systems. The first system that I owned was actually a Nintendo. So
First one. I pretty much had them all at some point. Anybody out there? What was the first video game system you owned? What did you enjoy most on there? My first was actually the Odyssey 2. That was the first one I had. My aunt and uncle had it at the time. And we fell in love with it. We played Combat. Bill's here. Bill says you need older people. Arcades had the first gamers. They they did have the first gamers, but we're talking about like in youth and stuff like that. Bill, well, not yours, and you can't really count
You
like
need
throwing rocks at a TV screen as video games at that point.
You might be able to.
But the arcades were really big. That's a great point he brought up,
Yes.
though. Who experienced video games in the arcades before experiencing it on the home consoles? Did anybody?
Yeah,
Before they had their
definitely.
first. Not you, Brad, because you had the Commodore. What was yours, Jeremy?
Back in the day, it was still like Pac-Man, the old school. Pac-Man, Donkey Kong, Asteroid, which I never. Tron, Tempest. There's a game I never understood. I always just kept playing it, but I never understood how I was supposed to be playing it. So,
Yeah.
I've actually played Tempest a couple times. I have no idea how that game was supposed to be played.
yeah.
The arcades, mine was. We used to have the Boys Club of America, and I used to go there. They had the teen room with the arcades, and that was mostly my first experience of really playing games as a kid. But the Odyssey was the shit. I mean, that was the first one that got me in, and nobody. Back then, video games were going to be really bad for you.
That's what they all
Arcades and
said, yeah.
stuff.
Right.
People talk about games now, and because he bought up the arcades, people always get mad at this pay-to-play type game that they have, for phones and stuff like that. And what are they called? Freemiums?
Yeah.
Freemium games that they do. We had the ultimate pay-to-play. You think it was bad? You had to spend $1.99 for the game, a month or something like that. We would delve hundreds of quarters into these arcade machines to play
did,
the
but
same damn screen.
It turned us into entrepreneurs at 12 because we would
we
do
made-
whatever it took in order to make that money. I used to go down to my dad had a car wash at the end of his street, and I would check the garbage for bottles just so I can return them, just so I can play the games. And one day, I don't know what happened. It was a Christmas miracle because every single garbage can was full to the brim with bottles. So I had to get a wagon to grab all of it and return it to the store. And I ended up getting like 35, 40 bucks out of it.
The state,
was awesome.
Bill says he was the state Pango and Centipede champ. How old were you for Centipede? 'Cause Centipede, I thought, was like 83, wasn't it? 82, 83?
Yeah, Pango's like 84.
Yeah, on there. But good job, Bill. So you were like the wizard there. The wizard on there. And he also mentions Time Zone Arcade and Hazel Park had everything. They did, but when I was a kid, you did not go near Time Zone Arcade unless you wanted to leave with a bullet in your head.
Right.
Like, it was because that's right by our stomping grounds there. That whole complex has changed drastically.
And they
It's
had
not
the
even
dollar
close to the
theater
same.
there, yeah.
Yep. Northland Theater. But it was dangerous. And I never knew arcades were anything but dangerous growing up. Because the only arcade we had was Time Zone, and it was like, you do not go there. In the newspaper every day on the news, you'd hear some kind of shooting over at Time Zone. It was really, really bad. Gail Marie's here. She says hi, hanging out at work while waiting to go home. Can't hear, but wanted to say hi. Love from Alice coming your way. All right, well, thank you very much. Good to talk to you, Gail. Gail Marie. All right, so what games, we all had our games that we were the shit at that we couldn't put down. Where do you lie in that? And how did that, like, really affect your social life?
Yeah, mine were always the EA Sports games. I would just like find the right way to, beat it at the superstar level or whatever. So I could just never. I would get a little too addicted to it, just trying to get better.
Now, the EA Sports games mostly came out for the Genesis era, is when those really started to come out and made it
Yeah,
big.
mine would be like 2000, 2001. Right. When
So you didn't
PlayStation
experience,
1.
but you said you played like Tetris on regular Nintendo and stuff like that. Did you like sports games at that time too?
That was just what my great grandma had when we went to visit her. So it was that's how I got into the Tetris.
I got you. So you definitely got into all of them. What was your first sports games?
It was the NHL. The earliest one I can remember is NHL 2001. It was sweet.
Fucking A, man. It was a good game, man.
Yeah, like the
Right.
gameplay was amazing. They looked like
Fucking fantastic.
pixels, but it was pretty great.
But they didn't at the time when it came out. It was so realistic. Like every game
yeah.
system I remember that was coming out in the future. You look at them now. You look at Nintendo or Super Nintendo, and you're like, wow, that's it's crappy graphics, really. But you'd see like a digitized image of something, and you'd be like, it's not going to get better than this. Look at that picture.
Yeah.
And you couldn't believe it. And
But-
go ahead.
Oh, sorry. And for us, it was NHL '94 that was
Yeah.
the pinnacle because it still had the fights. And then '95, that was when NHL decided they're not going to put blood in the video games anymore. So for a while, they took out fights entirely out of all of the cartridge-based NHL games. And they were failing miserably, and they were just worse and worse. And then eventually they put him back in.
I think there were fights in the 2001. Do you remember, Brad? I think there was fights.
I'm pretty sure there was fights in it, man. I don't think there was blood though,
Yeah.
but there was fights.
Blood, but yeah.
Well, if there was, you couldn't really tell what it was.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mostly
It's
on
too
that one.
pixely.
Yeah, on that one. So it wasn't until EA Sports that you played. EA is the one that started. It was EA or Madden that actually started having licensed teams in their games. Finally, was that a draw to play those games for anybody else who was alive for that?
No, man. No, I didn't really care for any other sports games besides hockey. I couldn't play baseball. It was so fucking boring.
It was.
Didn't like football because I don't understand that game at all.
It's
Never say anything
weird.
about it, man.
It's totally weird to see stuff like Real Play Football was the name of like in television games on there, or Real Play Baseball,
Sure.
and all those great games out there, and they were the worst looking in the world, and we thought they were the shit. We thought they were the shit. Bill says also Time Zone had the wall of 900 pictures of people not allowed in the back, not allowed back in. Yeah, it was such a bad, dangerous place that whole complex was. Street Fighter. Street Fighter is where arcades, I think, really took off again.
Yeah, during the 90s, that was
Wasn't
the
that the first two-player?
Well, actually, the original Street Fighter
Right.
was a one-player, I believe. But Street Fighter 2 is
No,
the
it
one
was-
everybody's familiar with.
it was two players,
Street-
but with the single player, you only had Ryu as an option, unless you were playing the second player, in which you got Ken, and so that was
Okay.
it, so. But
And
one
the
of the
problem that-
earliest.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say one of the earliest two-player fighting, traditional fighting games was Karate Champ that I remember. So
Yeah, I remember that was 7800, wasn't it?
they
Oh,
had
yeah,
it there.
definitely.
I remember having it. I had it on the Nintendo. So
Okay. That was 7800. That was Atari.
Mm-hmm.
So, what happened with the video game crash? What do you think really happened with that? Was it all ET's fault?
E.T. was
No. It was
the straw that broke the camel's back. One of the biggest problems was Atari. Basically, because of how successful they were, they didn't. They weren't quality controlling their games, and
No,
so
it was
a lot of the
shovelware.
games. Yeah, a lot of the games. I mean, a lot of people talk shit about the Wii and how their games were shovelware. Atari and their quality were absolute crap. And
Yeah, for sure.
their versions of Pac-Man, Donkey
They were
Kong.
spending.
Yeah, and they were horrible.
I was
And,
so pissed.
they-
I was more pissed about Pac-Man than I was E.T. E.T.
Oh,
was
Pac-Man was
infuriating
horrible.
because you spent your whole life in the pit, raising your
Yeah,
neck
yeah.
only to move an inch to fall into it again. But
Yeah.
Pac-Man looked atrocious.
But
And
it's
going back to Street
2600.
Fighter, so real quick, going back to Street Fighter, Street Fighter 1. The reason that it didn't pick up steam back then is because they made the poor decision to have their buttons be giant punchable fists or giant punchable buttons, and you had a punch and a kick. So you would just punch these things, like whack-a-mole, and fighting
They
each
were-
other instead of just having a button system. It looks horrible.
They actually had two different cabinets for the first Street Fighter. One was the one that you described. I remember
Right.
distinctly
Yeah.
Major Magics in Madison Heights. They had that, ages ago growing up.
That's the
And-
one. Yeah.
And yeah, it was that giant. And the problem is that because the pads were just taking a lot of beating, they never worked properly anyway. So
It was right by Kangaroo.
yeah.
You guys aren't hearing that though, right?
Oh, we're hearing that.
We're hearing it.
Yes.
You're hearing
Yeah.
the games?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh, damn. Sorry to go over you. It was supposed to be off. I don't know why it did that. So there, we're going to unmute it. All right. Sorry about that. I didn't mean to go over you. I was just trying to show the scenes with it.
No, that's
Bill
cool.
says that we know too much about this stuff. Do you buy all your herbal medication from the same place? We were just...
Yeah.
Wait, you're saying we
it
know
is
way
about-
too much about this stuff, Mr. Centipede and Pango Champion.
It
You
is
obviously
also-
played it.
But it is also about maintaining, loyalty with, so you got to keep buying it from the same place. So, yeah.
Plus, a lot of what I know about video games came from that Netflix documentary.
Oh, yeah.
Docu-series. I forgot what it was called, but
could-
it might have been
I
Game
could have
Over.
wrote that.
Video games that made us.
That's the
Yeah,
one.
man.
That's the one.
Oh, yeah.
I actually
That's
saw
good.
that one. That was pretty fucking good, man.
It was really good.
It was good. Yeah, fucking
For,
hell.
for arcades when I was growing up, aside from Major Magic, back when Chuck E. Cheese actually had arcade games, particularly one on Van Dyke. And then when I lived in Detroit, we had Wizards, which was just off of Shaner, and then Butterflies on Van Dyke also. So
We had that.
Yeah.
We had Tilt at
And then the
Lakeside
Tilts.
Mall is what I really
Tilt.
You
remember.
had the
Yeah.
Tilt. You had Space Station Arcade, which turned into a Starbucks over by Beaumont.
remember
oh
that.
yeah, in Berkeley, yeah.
You
Arcades,
had
arcades just
the one on
died out.
Gratiot that turned into a jewelry store. Yeah. Well, I mean,
mentioned,
as graphics got better, you know,
Arcades were
graphics
always
got better.
surpassing them.
you know,
They were the pinnacle of it. They could do things in arcades they couldn't do elsewhere. I wanted to go in something Jeremy had said. He's muted right now.
Yeah,
Oh, there he is. Okay, just making sure that you had mentioned that people talk about the WiiWare and the shovelware for the Wii console and stuff. Nintendo was like anal about their quality control when they first came out.
Oh yes.
No
very much
games
so.
did. Everything had to have the license, Nintendo's official license. If you didn't, there were lawsuits abound.
Yes. The way it worked was that each company was only allowed a certain number of cartridges that they could release in a year. And they only came through Nintendo, and so Nintendo was being very, very strict in terms of the quality control. And I mean that's why companies like Konami actually had two separate lines to try and circumvent that, to release multiple games
Right.
to beyond the amount. So
And their licensing costs were ridiculous on their games.
yeah,
Like, there was a lot to be lost by trying to make a licensed game for Nintendo. Alligator Alley on Woodward, Old Red Barn Restaurant, more arcades than I know. Really, it was pretty much the ones Jeremy had mentioned in my area that I remember. Atari Pong. That's where most of the video games started. Did anybody, obviously, he's right about this, we need to be a little bit older, but they were around when some of us were kids. Did anybody have that as their first system?
It wasn't my first system, but we did have an Atari. It was my stepmom's, and we had the missile launch game and a couple others. But we had an NES, so we were like, this is better, yay.
yeah. I know it's hard to go back if you didn't experience it firsthand. You know.
Yeah.
But Nintendo was the shit. I mean, they really were over Sega and all that. Not because of the console, not getting into console wars yet, which we will, because that was really huge. But they started, like Donkey Kong, it gave Pac-Man the biggest run for its money, like Bill says here. And everything they released, Mario Brothers, he also mentions, was amazing. And everybody that you're mentioning right now is Nintendo. Nintendo was king of the world, but only here. Like, that's one thing people don't realize. The NES did not do, or the Famicom did not do what the NES did. Sega was king overseas.
yeah, definitely in Europe, and even in like Spain had it for much longer than I mean they actually had it much longer than the Genesis. So
With that in mind, why do you think Nintendo is always credited with bringing back video games, saving them from the crash?
because it went mainstream. Man.
I mean,
I think.
Yeah.
Pretty
and
much.
Super Mario Brothers was the first game to really look as good in the arcade as it did at the home. So once people saw that, they started going, "Oh wow, we finally hit that point where it matches." And it always improved, definitely Capcom was king in the arcades for the longest time. But
Yeah, Captain.
and that's sort of what started the ball rolling. You had Ghost and Goblins, you had Super Mario Brothers, and all these really creative different games, and the light guns.
Well, Super
and
Mario Brothers
all
wasn't
that
initially
stuff.
available in the arcades. That was like new to everybody. It doesn't come till the Play Choice 10s and stuff that Super Mario Brothers actually entered the arcade world, and they were like brief segments of the game. But
Well,
the
I-
original
I-
Mario Brothers,
But I played Super Mario Brothers prior to
you
playing.
might
it
have,
to
because it did
Nintendo.
hit. But I don't know how old you were, but the Play Choice 10 came
Because
shortly
it was a
after the
different-
releases, and Super Mario Brothers also was
But it was a
released
slightly
like 2
different
years
version.
before we got it.
Yeah, the arcade versions of Super Mario Brothers were slightly different. They were very much designed to be
They were better.
yeah. Well, and also designed to suck your money, basically, is what they were.
Right, they were harder
So,
levels
Yeah.
and stuff. So what Mario was big. Who was a Mario fan or still is today?
Oh hell yeah,
Uh,
man.
Definitely.
The best.
If Mario comes out, it is. So what game do you think you looked forward to most of all of the Mario franchise? What pulls you? Because I bought
Super Mario
systems
World 3, man.
strictly for Mario.
There was a N64. If anybody remembers those, I don't even know how old new those were, but there was a
Oh,
3D
N64
Mario.
is like, what, 93? 94?
maybe,
Yeah,
honestly,
it's,
if you-
Super
Super
Nintendo was
Mario
91, so it might have been a little bit... No, N64 might have
it
been
was
like
probably closer to
98.
98, 99.
Yeah, 98 I think it was, actually.
Yeah, but this 3D Mario world was amazing. I don't know what that was called either, but I played that a lot.
See, when it
Super
comes
Mario
to
World.
Mario games, I prefer the traditional side-scrolling platformer. At least when it comes to the older stuff.
Agreed.
So yeah, so like I remember asking like my grandparents and my parents and for money so I can try and pick up a copy of Super Mario Brothers 3, and I remember distinctly picking up my copy from Fredder Appliances. I don't know if you guys remember that.
I remember Fredder.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I remember distinctly buying it from there, and yeah, and pretty much any Mario games. Like I love Mario Odyssey on the Switch. It's fantastic. But yeah, definitely if it's a 2D side-scrolling Mario game, that is for me.
Bill says it was graphics versus price, one of the things that also led to the video game Crash and Resurrection, and that then graphics versus better graphics, people didn't care about price. And I think that's not necessarily as true as it is today. I think a lot of it was innovation with the game systems, because you had a lot of copycats with graphics, and they were touting more power, whether it be speed, sound chips, CD add-ons, number pads on your controller, joystick controller, regular retro pad, Rob the Robot, if you remember that piece of shit.
I remember that.
2 games. Yeah, 2 games.
With
Yeah.
Gyromite.
Gyromite and it was what was the other one?
Gosh.
Oh,
I can't remember.
yeah. I know.
Can't remember, but there was he had 2 games on him, and he was a
It's
thing.
like a pipe thing.
But the cool things were stuff like the light gun. The light gun was a selling point for Nintendo. And you look at the games nowadays, I don't see innovation between systems anymore. I see, wow, I can see lighting now better. The ray tracing's there. It looks a little better.
Right.
And I think that's been a problem since the PS2.
Okay. It's bad because I work for PlayStation, and to say that they're not innovating is, I mean, they are in a sense, but definitely it's not in the same leaps and bounds that Nintendo does. I mean, if you look at the what Nintendo brings out when it comes to their systems, it is built around the innovation. The Wii, the Wii U, the Switch, all of those are not traditional style systems, and for good or bad, you could only get some of these experiences through those systems. So
That's the thing about the licensing with Nintendo, especially if you want a Mario game, you want a Zelda game, you want anything like that, you need Nintendo. Animal Crossing, you've got to go Nintendo. But it was different, I think, when you jumped, because even the NES did not have that great of graphics when it came out.
no, it was technically underpowered when you compared it to the Sega Master System.
Yeah,
So,
the Sega Master System was actually a superior system,
yeah.
I think, in a lot of ways. Even though I love my Nintendo,
Yeah, Fantasy Star was incredible.
yeah.
But Nintendo was brutal when it came to their licensing, like you were saying. If a game came out on the Nintendo, they had it in the contract that they couldn't also be released. That version could not be released on other systems. So that's why Nintendo scooped up so many arcade titles and the Sega had nothing to compete it with. So unless it was their own games.
It worked for them through the Super Nintendo, I'm going to say that. But do you think eventually that hurt them?
Oh gosh, yeah. Yeah, well, they were their draconian rules, and then their decision, of course, also their decision to stick with cartridges is ultimately what caused them to lose market share. So
I'm going to ask you this, Jeremy, because you're in the business. Why did Nintendo go back to cartridge format?
they will tell you
Proprietary control.
Yeah, they will tell you it was because they wanted to prevent piracy, and they wanted also instant access to one of the biggest problems with CD technology at the time was load times. And so they felt that cartridges gave them that edge, and yet realistically it was basically about control. A whole underlying thing was all about control.
I mean, don't get me wrong. You can, one of those little cards can do 512 gigabytes of memory on it, way more than even a Blu-ray can hold.
yeah.
So I think it is actually cheaper to produce. I can go to Micro Center right now and buy a little card of 256, which is way more than most any of those video games are, for $6.
Yeah.
Yep.
I don't think it hurt them. I always thought they should go flash cards. I always thought early on they should go like a dual memory thing that was a cartridge with a disc inside, kind of like the UMDs did for,
For
but
the PSP. Yeah.
And
but actually
Sega Master
have
System did that too.
a chip in it as well.
And TurboGrafx.
Yeah, TurboGrafx was a great system that was relatively unknown. I thought it was a fantastic
here in the
system.
States, yeah.
The absolute best Castlevania game ever made was on TurboGrafx, as far as I'm concerned.
And the only place you could play Splatterhouse.
It was good, man. I had one of those.
And I had to import it. I remember renting it and refusing to return it because we had a game place about 30 miles away that did import rentals. And I just refused to return it. I'm like, I'm not taking it back. I'm keeping it. Because it was like the best Castlevania. Nobody I knew had it because nobody had a TurboGrafx. So, but speaking of those consoles, who here was a Sega fanboy?
I like Sega too, man. Fucking Sonic the Hedgehog for life, man.
And who was a Nintendo fanboy?
Nintendo all the way, man. I was Nintendo.
See,
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Sorry. So I was both. Okay. So I started out with Nintendo and then went to Sega Master System and then I got Genesis and then I got Super Nintendo. I always loved Sega Genesis's, their games drew me in more. To me, things like Phantasy Star, you had were excellent RPGs. You had Space Harrier and all this really creative stuff coming out of Sega. And then you had some really great titles from Nintendo. I always liked the sound better on Nintendo. I thought they did a much better job for sound design and things like that, and what they used in their chipset.
Which is really
Everything
amazing
just sounded
because,
great. Like
because
Pilot Wing still
technically-
sounds fantastic.
Well, for Super Nintendo, I agree, but like for the original Sega, the Master System had the better chipset for sound too. And I was always amazed that a lot of times I preferred the Nintendo sound too over that. And same with Super Nintendo Genesis, I preferred Nintendo sound.
But Genesis was always more tinny and distorted.
It
Like
sounded
you could
behind.
do real voice work on it, but it was like Bad Dudes, where he's I'm bad, but it was like really distorted, horrible mess.
And well, Nintendo was one who pushed the limits in their games, or at least the people who made products for the Nintendo. Like, I was like floored when the game Clay Fighter came out, and you popped it into your Nintendo, and there was a full song sung intro.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
And you popped in the Genesis, you didn't get that shit
No.
at all. It was not there because there was.
Not to be contrarian and to cause an uproar in the community, but was Sonic actually good? At least, I mean, once you get past like the first 3 games,
All right, Brad, go at him.
were they actually good games?
Well, okay, listen. The first 2 were fucking pretty great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The third one, it was good, but when you started getting into that Sonic Spinball and Sonic fucking 3D, that's kind of where I dropped off.
Yeah.
Sonic 3D wasn't. They tried real fucking hard on that, man. But I think they fucking failed on that one. I think they tried to up their bar too much and just didn't deliver. You know.
Yeah,
And I think
thought-
they were killing the budget at that point. I think.
Yeah, but I thought Sonic
Oh.
3D was actually a cool game. Sonic 3D Blast.
It fucking was. It was a cool game, but you couldn't see your depth fucking well, man. It was like fishing in the fucking dark, man. You couldn't see where you were going. Had they taken the time and made the fucking design better, it would have done a whole lot fucking better. But I think they just kind of fucking rushed it, and it fucking failed,
was a
man.
big creating Sonic 3D. I'm sure Jeremy knows this, for the Genesis was probably one of the biggest things they ever tackled to put on a video game cartridge, because there was no way to store the sprite work they needed, the tile maps that they needed for Sonic 3D Blast. They literally had to
processing.
cheat to do it, and that was the big thing. So the fanboys, how many people didn't have friends because of the separation divide? Now, I mean, you might have still been friends, but literally, fuck you, Sega.
console war, yeah. Old cool console war. You know, my friend set were always very much Super Nintendo. So, you know, yeah, that's why we got along so well. So
Yeah, for us, it was the Xbox versus the PlayStation, so I was a little
There you go.
later in the
Yeah.
time.
Which, I mean, Xbox versus PlayStation is good, but that didn't last as long. Like because now
I
it's
argue it's still going on.
oh my god.
Oh,
I-
yeah. Just
I-
read a comment thread. Yeah.
I tried, you know, I decided, especially during the pandemic, I decided I would, and for my job, I decided I would become a little bit more active on Twitter, particularly in the gaming space. Can I just say that gaming Twitter are a bunch of really toxic, nasty people.
Oh,
in
absolutely.
general. They are horrible when it comes to. I mean, they will not only talk about how good their system is, and in the process somehow tell you that you're going to hell, and you know, and little baby Jesus hates you. That is it is the craziest thing.
Bill says, he says, white trash one time he goes to jail. It's true. He said on the show one time and they booted him. And he's heard the fucking 10 times. Yeah, well, we swear on here. We've always sworn on here.
Now,
It's
I will say
natural,
one
it's real.
thing. I will say one thing. There is a definitive, better version of Mortal Kombat for Super Nintendo and Genesis. It kills on Genesis because it actually had blood and fatalities.
Fatalities.
Was that enough
Super
to make it,
Nintendo,
though?
yes, because Super Nintendo changed all of their fatalities so that there was no blood or anything like that. There was no beheading. There was no anything.
But it was choppy gameplay.
It
wasn't as fun to play. It was a little hard to play. I actually think that the Super Nintendo version was better, but you're right. I hated the fact that there was no blood.
Yeah.
But that eventually loosened up, and you had blood on Super Nintendo Mortal Kombat games.
Well,
Did you guys ever have one of these? I
Oh my God, yes I did.
oh yeah.
I picked this up specifically for Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter back in the day. Yeah, it doesn't work for shit, but you know, I still remember. I
Those thumb
remember.
pads are always fun.
It was the arcade stick for Street Fighter. The Nintendo arcade stick. That was what most people wanted to have for that, because it was like the arcade games.
Yeah.
and then
that
the
was-
NES Max was
Yes.
horrible. Oh my god! Because it
What
had
about the
moving
U-Force?
thing.
Yeah, it didn't recenter. So
Yeah.
Does anybody remember the U-Force?
I remember, but I never had it.
I don't think.
It was literally, it was a panel, and it was the control with your hands. You didn't touch anything. For a regular Nintendo.
Oh, I think I kind of remember. Yeah.
It was beat out pretty much by the Power Glove, which was a joke, but people like that Power Glove. They really did. Our friend Jason was addicted to that for a while.
Just put it in the wizard.
And
Yep.
the reason I was saying I didn't think the competition was the same now that it was then is because it's common for people to own two systems now. Most of us growing up, you had one system. Your parents were not shelling the money, that kind of money, because they were really expensive for the time period. They say that $600 is too much for a PlayStation. Really, our Super Nintendo was kind of the equivalent of that back in the day.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
And some of those cartridges were $70.
Yeah, $70, $80, and they're complaining now
Oh,
that
easy.
PlayStation raised the price. Yeah, they're just like, yeah, I remember when Killer Instinct Gold was almost $80 to $90. So
Bill says actually survival training is better than any video game. Get dropped in the middle of Canadian wilderness and live it. So what do you think? You're from Canada, Brad. Is that true?
If you can fucking survive in the woods in Canada during the winter, you're a fucking hero, man. Okay, because you will either fucking freeze to death or you get mauled to death by a wild fucking animal, man. So Bill's right, man. If you can fucking survive that shit, you just lived a real life. You just lived a real life fucking game, man.
Yeah,
You're a
we're
But
fucking
if
gonna
you're
hero.
good at video games, you're pretty much indoors and safe from those things.
Yeah.
So you don't have to worry about it.
We're
I
gonna
play
Come
a
do
to
lot
Canada,
of Red
man.
Dead,
Holy
so-
fuck.
Play a lot of Red Dead, so I think I
So,
got a chance.
in Canada, would as the animals maul you, would they say sorry and just and apologize? Is that how that goes? Oh, sorry.
Ah, fuck no, man. No, they don't say sorry, man. only the fucking people say that. The animals just eat you. Keep fucking moving on, man. That's it.
There's
They don't
no
give a fuck.
apology, no regrets
It's
whatsoever.
eat or fucking be eaten, man. Like no jokes, man. Walking the fuck around Canada, man. Outside on your step, you will see wildlife. You'll see skunks, fucking rabbit, deer, fucking coyotes, fucking all over the place, man.
Now, I assume everybody, Bill says he's done that 3 times in his life, and he survived it, so good job. So you don't need video games. Except for to be state
life
champion.
is like a video game anyway.
Yeah.
In a sense, it really is. It really is, but just when you get to the final boss fight, it just shuts down. And you're screwed. And you're screwed on that. So, Super Mario Brothers 3. Probably the biggest thing to ever come to the United States.
Fuck yeah.
Do you remember that? Do you remember seeing the Wizard for the first time?
Oh yes.
I
Strictly
think I
for
remember
that.
the Wizards.
I don't know. Wizard
Fred
either.
Savage game competition.
It was a glorified commercial for the
It really
game.
was.
But who
You-
cares? Who
But
cares?
it actually, I liked the movie too, but the only reason we went to see it was the first footage in the U.S. of Super Mario Brothers 3 being played.
Right.
And
And then
apparently the kid was a savant and he knew hidden secrets that how would he
Right.
know even though he's never
Right.
played the game before.
He just knew how to elevate himself up at that particular point of the screen.
Yeah, he didn't
Yeah.
get both whistles. I'm sorry. Already at the start of that game. I hated that the movie gave away the location of the whistles, though.
Just one of them.
Well, as someone that grew up reading issues of Nintendo Power, that kind of stuff was revealed to me ages ago. So
Oh, I know.
Well, yeah, when the magazines came out, but when Nintendo Power came out talking about Super Mario Brothers 3 before the game actually came out, they didn't tell you how to get...
Well, that was your only news, Electronic Gaming Monthly and Game Pro and all that stuff. That's just to see a picture of something coming out was the most incredible thing.
a
Like
blurry
full
picture, no less.
and then like a full spread of like Belmont, Simon's Quest, like Castlevania. Seeing that and just the whole map laid out for you was just incredible.
And I hated Simon's Quest. That was like one of my least favorite games ever. Bill says first time I saw the Wizard was on the Wizard of Oz. Reference to Linny on Here, She'll Be Back, and that was definitely what she was talking about last time we did a video game show. So Castlevania, favorite series? Let's go there. We'll start with you, Brandon, because you've been kind of quiet.
Castlevania.
That your favorite series?
I have no idea what that is.
Wow.
Oh, shit.
I know.
Oh, the youth.
Lords of Shadow, Symphony of the Night, none of that. I mean, that's all.
But
a
that's-
lot of Castlevania
Is
are
that
still
the
coming out.
decision-making ones?
Yeah, Konami they sort of tanked. You know,
So what
in
is your
these later
favorite?
generations?
Not necessarily Castlevania. What's your favorite game series right now?
Yeah.
Yeah, is that?
Oh, I kind of fell in love with the sports series. That's kind of all I really played my whole life.
Hi,
Okay.
Lenny. There is Lenny actually right now. She's taking a walk with her son. Just saw that we mentioned her. So miss you too. You'll be back. We know you will. What about you, Gabe? What do you figure is the pinnacle series for you?
You know, I was always into RPGs, so I mean, I'd say the Final Fantasy stuff, or anything Bethesda, Elder Scrolls, Fallout. Fallout for me was it. That was the cat's pajamas, because I played Fallout on PC and Fallout 1 and 2, and when it was, you know, it was recreated and purchased again, and it was a miracle.
What about you, Brad? Is it still Sonic?
Wouldn't. No. Fuck no. I like Sonic and shit. I like
Fucking
Sonic and
Sega
Mario.
fanboy.
That's right. That's right. Get in line. But I kind of like all fucking games, man. But as of right now, I'd have to say I picked up this game like 2 weeks ago, man. I played it before and I fucking beat it. The Last of Us.
Last of Us is a really good game.
Incredible.
That's fucking great, man. So it's so good, man. I've been lost in that game for a while.
Part 2
man.
or 1?
I haven't gotten to part 2 yet. I just got
Okay.
the first one. I played it again. I beat it. I'm waiting until next pay to fucking pick up the second part. I haven't played it yet, but I'm super pumped for it, man, because it's just the fucking girl in it now. Joel's
Bill
fucking dead.
Bill
Spoiler
says this is
alert.
Dungeons and
Spoilers.
Dragons.
Sorry, guys. I assume everyone's played it.
I'll
You
let
can
you
have
know
it,
that
sorry.
the part 2 is a experience. And
I've
you
heard,
may-
yeah.
You may not ever. It's a great experience, but I will never probably revisit it ever.
I've heard people say that, man. It's a time-consuming son of a bitch, man.
Well, no, it's not
it's
even.
an
It's not
emotional-
even that. It is
yeah.
an emotional roller coaster.
Yeah.
Well, even from the first one when Joel's fucking kid got shot, man, I had to walk the fuck away from that for a minute, man.
Yeah.
I felt like my own fucking kid died, man. It was like, holy fuck, that's way too intense for a game, man.
This one's way turned up. Yeah.
Somebody's
Yeah.
right at that point playing the game right now, watching this in the background.
Son
going,
of a.
fucking it.
So no point now.
Bill says Dungeons and Dragons. There have been, people don't realize how many Dungeons and Dragons games there have been, video games.
Sure.
There are so many of them. I've never liked them. I never have even, any of them, really.
The first Dark Alliance and Baldur's Gate was sweet.
You're into the RPGs. And I didn't get into RPGs till Final Fantasy Mystic Quest. That was the first one that actually pulled me. I was like, this is kind of cool. And then 2, and Final Fantasy 3 made RPGs for me. Well, 3 US, 6,
Yeah.
6
yeah.
across the country, or across the ocean. But mine, still to this day, honestly, is probably Mega Man.
Yeah.
I love the Mega Man games. Anyone comes out. And they're the one franchise I think that they didn't try to change their original franchise. When they did something different, it was a new franchise. You know, you now have the Mega Man X series, the Legends series, and what is the
Battle Network.
Battle Network series. And so if you knew if a Mega Man game came out, you were getting a Mega Man game.
All right.
X game came. X they messed around with a little bit when it got to PlayStation 2. They tried to do a little more with Mega Man X. That's probably my favorite, but always Castlevania, Contra, Ghouls and Ghosts, Mario, of course, are all.
Ghouls and Ghosts, really? Mm-hmm. Ghouls and Ghosts, yes. Ghosts and Goblins. Like I said, I have it, and it's still a nightmare.
Well, like
It's just-
Maximo Ghost of
I-
Glories,
It's so
I love.
punishing.
I only finished Ghosts and Goblins because I cheated.
Once?
I
Yeah.
I used the cheat code back in the day. So yeah. For me, old school, like first generation systems, it's the Mega Man series. That's my all time favorite. As it got further into the later generations, the Prince of Persia series, particularly the Sands of Time stuff, are my all-time favorite.
Those are absolutely great games.
And
Nice
you know,
pick.
and I'm not sure where I feel about. I'm not sure about modern games. I mean, Spider-Man is up there. Ghost of Tsushima. I'm mentioning these titles again, making it, but I also work for the company, so I mean,
Horizon Zero Dawn to me was
yes,
one of the best storytelling experiences, just through found data
yes,
and exploration. It was like perfect execution.
It pissed me off that it came out the same year that Mario Odyssey and Breath of the Wild came out, because if those two hadn't come out, I definitely think Horizon would have been Game of the Year.
I
So,
agree. Yeah, I agree.
Of course, the Zelda series. I didn't even think about that, but Zelda.
I didn't even
only
finish
liked the Overhead series.
yes,
Like those are the ones I was a fan of, and I didn't like the second one, but I love the first one. Link to the Past, one of my all-time favorites. And,
For sure.
Yep, and I loved the revisit Link Between Two Worlds. I thought that was a really good job that they did. But it's weird when you go back to like the Nintendo games, the Coleco games. They were all very similar in so many ways. Basic things that you did in every game. And do you think newer games have all these great graphics, bigger worlds, huge and massive, but I feel like they lose some of their individual identities, unlike they had in the classic days? Like if you played Rygar, you knew what to expect on Nintendo, but you fell in love in a different way. It was the same as a lot of other games out there. Castlevania, you knew what to get. Mega Man, you knew what to get. Ikari Warriors, all the other great ones. Q*bert. That now I see a lot of games released, and I'm like, well, it's just like this other one. And do you feel they've lost their individuality?
In a sense, yeah, I totally agree. It all seems like the same, just the same thing, just put in a different format or different characters, or yeah, 100%.
To me, it kind of seems like they're making like video games like a movie, like a movie you can experience. So that's why you're losing some individual or some like series to them, but you're getting a very different experience.
Well, and the majority of your AAA games nowadays are gun games. You're killing.
I think shooters
you're
are
killing
all
You're
stuff.
killing everything, whether it
All
be
lost
third
it.
person or first person. That's sort of what they're willing to spend the big bucks on nowadays, because it's the
Call of
safe bet.
Duty, man.
Yeah.
So taking a game like Death Stranding, for instance, which wasn't necessarily a shooter, but it was much darker and sort of tried to change it up. That's why it kind of failed in that regard, because I think not people were expecting
People
a
want
shooter.
the same thing, and I think we look
They
more
get
for
comfortable.
something new.
gamers are frustrating because they clamor for new experiences, but then flock to the same old experiences every year.
Right.
When look at the popularity of Call of. I mean, Christ on a pogo stick. I mean, they are releasing Grand Theft Auto 5 again on the PlayStation 5.
Yeah.
And just like, really, it's the same game from 2 generations ago. It's
It hasn't. It's the same thing. That's the thing, is they don't want change, and I think we embraced it. And when people did a sequel, you looked for the change. Now, mind you, Super Mario Brothers 2 was the Japanese version was identical to Super Mario Brothers 1. But take that out for the U.S. releases. Super Mario Brothers 2 in the U.S., though it was originally Doki Doki Panic, was an entirely different game that still kept us clamoring for it. It was so different mechanics. Mario Brothers 3 went back to the original, added so much, gave you world maps. Created different suits. Super Mario World, well, that's just Super Mario World. We got to see rotation and sprite scaling. So it was cool.
Paper Mario, things like that. Yeah.
But every game gave you something different with the franchise. You look at stuff like Call of Duty and stuff like that. Anything new they add, nobody cares.
Yeah.
They want it, and they're like, I just want to go back to zombies.
People
And,
get sick.
and it's hard to tell the difference in a lot of these shooter games when you're playing them. Hi there.
Say hi.
Hello.
Yeah, we're talking about video games.
Well, let me ask this question. Now, I mean, we all consider ourselves gamers and stuff like that, but there are so many people that there was a hard cutoff. They stopped playing games, and they basically treat it like it's a kid's thing, and that, there's a certain age where you should be stopping to play, and you should be moving on and doing adult things, like, I don't know, drinking wine or something. I don't know. Do you have anyone in your lives that used to be a gamer but then completely dropped off and now poo-poo the whole idea?
My brother used to like the video games a lot. He dropped off early.
Bye, baby.
Actually, a lot of friends I think of. I mean, my friend Jason, Gabe, probably the only ones I know really into video games as much anymore that I had when I was a kid.
Like when I worked at GameStop, it was one of those things that it surprised the hell out of me that as well, every time you see a parent come into the store, they still treated gaming, the industry as a whole, as a kid's thing. Even though there are games...
And they always will, you know.
I mean, the perception is that it's still a toy instead of this deep narrative structure, pieces of art that are on the same level as like movies and stuff like that. They still treat it like it's Pac-Man.
Well, that's the ironic thing, right? Because my father is a giant videophile. He has collected he has a vast catalog of movies, all the important ones, and it's like a library. And he still looks at video games like I'm wasting my time. And I get the regard because he looks at them as just sort of violent experiences, and what he's seeing on commercials and things like that, the bulk of it is, these violent experiences. But at the same time, he's missing all of these sort of indie games and these things like Psychonauts or something like that, where it's just, or Last of Us even, where it's just a truly
the deep emotional narrative
epic experience. And in more regards, to me, because you're spending so much time on it, you are much more emotionally invested in it than a 2-hour movie.
And there's more lessons to be learned about how you approach the game, what you do in each situation. Like, people don't see that they're kind of educational if you let them be.
They really are, and they bring people into fantasy worlds they didn't go to before. Like, they don't have to read books anymore. They're actually partaking in the stories. They're actually understanding the cause and effect of different things they do. You're right about that. There's a lot of good things to be said about games of today, for sure. But a lot of people, one thing is, like, there's a lot of cheat sites out there that Bill says, which is true, and I'm going to couple that with Joe here. Joe says that the classic games were the best because they were a bit harder to beat than they were in the original days, which I also am going to agree with. Do you think that's partly... I find people just go online for cheat sites. As far as I did in the early days of Nintendo, Super Nintendo, Nintendo 64 and stuff like that, yes, we had code books, we had cheat stuff like that, but I had to actually legitimately be stuck for hours to go to something like that, or call the Nintendo hotline.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I couldn't do that. I couldn't afford that. That's too steep for me.
Do you think they were easier back then or harder back then?
Oh, harder.
The games.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Absolutely, man. I mean, now you can just go on the computer and grab a cheat, and that's great. But when we were kids, man, like fucking late 80s, early 90s, you couldn't go on a site and get a cheat code. You had to actually fucking trial and error that shit.
Just try to beat Battletoads. I dare you.
Oh, yeah. Wait till you get to the bike level.
Holy fuck, man.
Yeah.
A lot of those older games, were built around skill based, and they were also the language that was the development language was still being created and stuff like that. But it was a lot of skill based kind of stuff. So I mean, even if you had a cheat code for 30 guys on Contra, you still had to try
go through those 30 guys.
You still had to beat the game. You know, it's still all on you to try and not die. And believe me, even with 30 plus guys, I still had a hard time beating that game.
And it was brutal because you had to do most of these games in one session.
Yeah.
So it was brutal. You turned off your system. There's no saving. You might be lucky to have a game with a password, which was like 5,000 different freaking letters to write down.
And as
or
the
Mega
older
Man's
your
grid
Nintendo,
system.
and as older your Nintendo system got, you might get to the end, and then all of a sudden you get blue screen.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
The
Yeah.
toaster
Countless
version.
times. Countless
Toaster
times.
Nintendos where you had to
Yeah.
push
That's-
it down, move it a little to the left, hop
And
on
wedge
one-
another game on top of it.
Yeah.
That's how I
Then it was
know
gonna
that.
connect.
Yeah, blow on it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fuck
Put
yeah.
a piece of paper in there just in case
Right.
to try to put
That's
it
the
down.
one thing I never figured out because, like we were talking earlier, Nintendo pretty much pioneered the return of video games. They really did it in so many ways. But God, that system was stupid, and we're the ones who got it. Like the Famicom was nothing like that.
No.
But that's because they were trying to market it as an entertainment system. They were not. They did refuse to use the words video game in all their advertising because video games crashed. Nobody wanted to be a part of the video game system, but they fucked that machine up. Bill's here. He asks, "Does gaming do anything for you mentally as a mechanical reasoning game does?" And I say absolutely 100% in every single game out there. I believe, as much as I'm against people on their phones all the time, I believe that phone games do too. Mental stimulation keeps your brain active. It really does. Hand-eye coordination, everything like that. I personally believe it's crucial. My grandma, she kept herself alert with video games. She enjoyed them. Some simplistic, some not, but she loved them. And they kept her going.
Yeah, mine too. My great grandma lived to almost 101, and
Wow.
a lot of that was she was gaming all the time, and she was sharp too, even at 100.
It keeps
Whiskey
it
and
going.
Tetris.
I want to know. What was she playing?
A lot of the classes she liked Tetris. She liked Hot Shots Golf.
Oh,
Like
yes.
like the golf games. Pac-Man 2. All the classics.
Do you feel that because of the way that games are designed now, that the younger kids aren't getting the same level of critical thinking, I guess?
Yes.
Could be.
Because I mean, I'm looking.
100%.
Yeah, because I'm looking at like some of the stuff that like my niece, love her to death, but I don't think she'd be able to handle a game like trying to figure out the cause and effect of like a Super Mario. It's just one of those things.
Your
It's just
classic games are a little more like a puzzle versus
Yeah,
your
They're
newer
a big
ones are-
learning experience.
Yeah.
I mean, I forget what it was. I think it actually might have been a Contra game, but it was something that was a new version of an older game. And I shot something, it goes, all right, this is a weapon.
yeah.
You walk up to
Right?
this weapon and pick it up.
Now
You can fire. And
they
you
really
take
hold
you
your
to
hand.
Yeah,
Yeah.
an area to jump, say, it'll pause the whole game to say, press this button to jump. If you hold the button over, you'll jump in a horizontal direction. Hold this straight. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? We had a controller, we hit a button, oh, that's what that does.
Yeah.
You know, it was
Yeah,
so...
That was total fucking carnage, wasn't it?
That's a good
I don't
game.
remember what it was, but there's quite a few of them. Every game that comes out, even the new Mega Man that I played, Mega Man 11, it handholds you. Like, why?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, especially considering most of the games are nowadays are kind of the same archetype. So the introduction tutorial does seem unnecessary. But I think a lot of games sort of switch it up enough to where you might have new mechanics and that you have to figure
No doubt.
things out. And I like the ones that do it when it and actually involve sort of the storytelling elements of it,
There's
so
certain
that
games
it
I
feels
see out
organic.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's certain games that I do believe, yes, you need your hand kind of held to walk through certain aspects because there's so many things to do. But that's not a lot of them. When you go into these some old ones, like I said, telling me to hit a button to jump to avoid something, like, no shit.
I'll be honest. Like I was playing the beta for the new game Bound for Back for Blood, the new zombie shooter game, and
Yeah.
I have no idea what any of the stuff means in terms of like the building your that's one of those games that they definitely should talk about what's going on and how to play. I just want, I was just hoping to just shoot the shit out of zombies is what I wanted to do, But then there's this, it's much more deep. It's deeper than that, and then that's definitely one of those games where I just feel
There's
like I need
aspects
that.
where it is important.
Yeah.
We had the ActRaiser for Super Nintendo. I love
gosh.
that game. That was a great game.
Great.
But when you got to the city building, it gave you a brief explanation of what you're doing.
Yeah.
Because hey, this is something you're probably not familiar with as a gamer in the games you play, so let us explain this. But I think some of the instructions they give now, they just take everybody as a retard. Like, you just don't know what the hell you're doing. And sadly, I think half of the gamers are. I think they really don't. They're so used to it. Not that they're actually dumb, but they're so used to being walked through everything.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I remember one of the craziest things, again, back in my GameStop days, the level of critical thinking. There's this kid, I was asking them for, for their information for something, and they literally could not figure out where to sign and whatnot. They had to look toward their parents. It's just like, really, I mean, you can't critical think your way through this. It was frustrating to experience.
Yeah. That's where, and he's asked, do you think it's mentally helpful? I think that tears it away a lot of times. If I was playing a game like you're playing a game, Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat or anything like that with your friend pulls off a fireball, you're like, I want to figure out how to do that. You're going to try different button combinations till you get it right. Before we had booklets and all the moves laid out for us when it first came out, and we'd all figure out how to do these different moves. Nothing told you how to do them. If you picked up a fire flower in the original Mario, you didn't know why you were a different color, and then you hit a button and go, ooh, fireball. Cool shit. And that's where I think they've lost it. And that's why I think sometimes the educational thing is not there, because you're spoon-fed it. And a lot of today's generation is spoon-fed a lot of stuff.
Yeah, you have to be open to it to actually get the lessons out of a game. You have to be just like the lessons out of anything.
Oh, fuck yeah.
Bill says children are playing the games at home and not interacting outside and getting exercise. When I was young in the Stone Age, we were outside playing baseball and basketball. It's called rock ball, and beating up the nerds in the neighborhood. Oh well, you're older than we are by a few hundred decades, but still.
That's why gaming became big, because the nerds were concerned about getting their asses.
Yes, they didn't go outside.
So they stayed at home and played video games.
Like, don't you want to go outside? No.
I'm gonna play Mario.
Thanks. You're the reason for the video game boom, Bill.
I'm gonna pretend you're Soda Popinski.
That argument's been around forever, though. I mean,
it has been, but I mean, at the end of the day, I think that's kind of on the fucking parents to get their kids outside, man. Like, don't get me wrong, I play games with my kids all the fucking time, man. But when it's like, we've been playing games for a couple hours, let's go the fuck outside, man. Go for a walk. Go on a crazy fucking adventure somewhere.
I mean, growing up with Gabe over there, sometimes we went over each other's houses. Well, me over his more often, and we played video games there. But sometimes we went out and we played outside and did a bunch of other things too. You were able to get a good mix, and that was, I do believe, our parents telling us to get out. Because honestly, if my mom said you could just sit there and play games all the time, I probably would have.
Plus, there was only one TV.
Yeah, that's also true.
When there was one TV in a house back then, so it was like, okay, you're off. Go outside. My turn.
Yeah. Or finish this level and go.
No, you have to find. I gotta find the safe spot. Yeah, exactly.
Or else all of your controllers were broken because you just smashed them on the ground.
But I mean, that's one of the problems. Going on what Bill said, one of the problems is that certain demonization of video games, that somehow all the blame and onus is on video games, as if somehow they're the ones that should be the ones telling kids to stop playing and go outside. No, it's really the parents that should be doing this.
For sure.
And it does, again, going back to similar to what we had said, it treats gaming as it's only like you have to win kind of thing, as opposed to definitely other mental and storytelling and as a form of entertainment, so.
Sure.
Bill says, unfortunately, child obesity has went way up in the last 10 years, snacks and social media and video games. Honestly, I'm not going to blame video games on this one. No. Video games are a part of it. I'm going to blame it on social media and phones and cell phones. I think a lot of that has to do with it, because even without the video game aspect of it, that's where they are if we're going to go that route. I don't think it's straight video games, because we had the video games and we still moved around and we created games outside. You know,
Right.
I don't know. You can't get fat eating playing video games.
You can get fat eating them though.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, some of that's just on the parents. I would
But
say.
parents should say get out of the house. And that's another problem, and I don't want to get much into the youth because that's a whole nother show for sure. But, you know, they send your kid out of the house, and what does your kid do? He sits down with his friends, and they're all on their fucking phones.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's all they do.
Yeah.
There is no drive for activity anymore. And that's,
But to say that it's not interacting is disingenuous. I mean, because it's just a new way of interacting. It just may not be the most ideal, or at least not the best balance.
It should be an additional way to interact, not your new way. And for a lot of people, that is their life.
I always like the offline modes. Is that weird?
No, I don't.
No, that's
like,
all good, man.
I personally,
Definitely.
I haven't even re-upped on my Xbox Live because I prefer not playing online. I prefer single player experiences anyway. So
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, sometimes people online they're kind of bitchy little fucking brats, man. You know?
Yeah.
They are, man.
Sometimes I would
Well,
say
online people are
sometimes
just
more
fun, too,
more
yeah.
often than not.
Yeah.
And
I just suck at those games. So
I'm sorry. So I think the irony of the outside stuff too is that there's not a giant market of activities or toys and things like that made for outside play anymore. You know, they stopped investing in that stuff that sort of
Changing
sent the
Brad's
kids
name, too.
outside. You know.
All right, there we are. All right, Brad's name was killing me. I had to change it. It's got to be Brad processing.
That's
So
fine.
really-
I don't know though, Gabe. I have to say, man, outside activity, man, the fucking Nerf, man, Nerf system, or Nerf guns, man.
Well,
they're still,
sure, the
they're
tried
still
and
killing
true.
it, man.
Right, but as far as like, you know, there used to be such back in our day,
lawn
everything.
darts.
Everything.
Yeah, lawn
You know,
darts are
yeah,
fucking outlawed, man. The actual lawn darts are fucking outlawed, man. That's
like,
that's it, man.
I never understood
But I
that.
mean, like, what the fuck were our parents thinking, man? Go outside, play with these giant fucking sharp things, throw them in the air, and run the fuck around them,
They
man.
weren't that
jarts.
sharp, though.
jarts.
But if you
That-
threw it up high enough, though, man,
they
that thing
throw
was
in
gonna come down your
gravity.
fucking head, man.
Yeah,
you
they're
throw
like
in
50
gravity.
pounds, man. It's like,
Well, if you're aiming for people, nobody could say step away. You know?
no, you would
They
say,
were kids,
run
man.
away, run away.
Do that thing where you're all standing in a circle, throw it up, and see who moves.
See who it
last.
hits. Russian jarts.
There's
I love
always
it. Russian
there's
roulette
always that
jarts.
kid though that panicked, man, and just kind of stayed in that one spot, and that was the weakest one, man. That's the one that didn't
But
win.
that's survival of the fittest. That's how it's supposed
yeah,
to work.
it is,
You get
man.
rid of
natural
those.
selection, man.
Right.
Right. But the guy that got the
What
jart
happened to
in
my
the shoulder
kid? He didn't make
blade,
it.
the guy that got the jart in the shoulder blade, he wasn't a chicken.
He was a hero,
He was
man.
badass.
He was a hero. Legend.
Fucking A, man.
Bill adds, you also have the fact that sports aren't as available in the schools anymore. Schools drop certain sports supposedly because of no money. And yeah, there's reasons for it. But again, if your school doesn't have sports, you know, a lot of us weren't on sports, not necessarily on the panel, but a lot of kids weren't on sports, but they still did outside activities. Parents pushed it. You know, my parents, on occasion, we'd go to the baseball diamond with a bunch of people and we'd all play baseball together, or we'd do stuff like that. So I agree with you, though. They're making outside activity less common, I guess.
But we also, the arcade industry and the fact that there was a new game, a mysterious game in every corner or every convenience store, it sent the kids out exploring. And it was, the equivalent of geocaching nowadays. You would go 2 miles with your buddy down to a convenience store because they had something like that.
Yeah.
A new game that you'd never heard of, or they had Gauntlet 2 or
Or you
some
knew a
shit
game
like
coming
that,
out, yeah.
So that was an exciting time,
All right, I know. So Brandon, here's going to take a quick break. I
Yeah,
will
I'll
see
be
you
right.
shortly. Yeah, and I think it's just that the parents don't try. And ours did try, and I think there's a lot of times they just don't try anymore. Because parents today see video games in a way that some parents saw TV as a babysitter.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Something to focus them on. But the difference now, parents get hooked on their phones too. So
Yeah. Fuck yeah, man.
when parents use television as a babysitter, there was a time that the parents wanted to watch TV and they would do things with the family. There was a time that parent got bored and they would take the kids out or they do something. Or they wanted to have some nookie time that they go out and play. You know,
Nookie
whatever
time.
reason it was. And now they don't, because if the kid's playing a game on his phone or for real, they're sitting there playing a game too. They're doing the same thing now. There's nothing to bore them, nothing to move them. Bill says, in my time Saturday morning, we watch cartoons and Sir Grace Ghastly, and then out the door doing something. Yeah, weekends were time to go out. Weekends were not about video games until Super Mario Brothers 3 was out. There was certain occasions that we stayed to play to beat a game because we were really into it. But go ahead, Jeremy.
What was the game that basically blew your mind and changed your opinion about gaming, where it went from just playing games to beat them to all of a sudden this transformative experience? You know,
The game?
yeah. I mean, like for me, you mentioned the game Final Fantasy 3 / Final Fantasy 6. For me, and Chrono Trigger. Those were the two games that just, when I played those games, I got lost in the world, and it's just like, this is what I want my video games to be like.
Yeah, for me, honestly, that did it for the RPG aspect. For me, realizing that video games could have a story, that there was more to interest me. I followed the stories so regularly, and Final Fantasy definitely one of my favorite RPGs of all time, next to Grandia. There's a few other ones in the series. The Lunar series I love. Lunar was a good series. But if it was not for Final Fantasy, I would have never picked up probably another RPG. I found them boring to watch. I was like, why are you playing this? You're hitting a button to attack. Well, it's stupid. It reminded me of the old PC games, the text adventures, and I was never into those.
Yeah.
So to see it as a story medium, a storytelling device, I think was definitely the same one, Final Fantasy 3, and Chrono Trigger was really good too. And
Yeah,
Bill is also right with me. It was the 3D hentai games.
Yeah.
There's
You know,
about
just
YouTube.
You go
fucking, it was Super fucking Smash Brothers, man.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Love Super Smash Brothers. It's fucking great, man.
Yeah,
But
it's good.
you know, we had just talked about the whole kids don't like to go outside and play games, man. You know, a good game that keeps kids entertained and gets them outside, fucking Pokemon Go, man.
Yeah, but you
Yes.
walk off cliffs.
That's true.
Only if you're not watching where you're going.
Yeah.
We're talking about kids of today. They're not watching
Fair
where they're
enough.
going. But
Mine was Fantasy Star for sure.
Okay.
Sega Master
First one?
System,
Okay.
first one, because there was nothing like it. It had those, the top down fantasy Final Fantasy thing, but as soon as you got into a dungeon, it was the first time that there was ever 3D animation.
Yeah.
Where you would turn left and you saw, as remedial as it was, you would go through these walls and you'd see the walls moving, then you'd have these incredible creatures, and it blew my mind.
that was it. I thought yours would have been Gateway to Apshai still. I remember you were addicted to that game.
What was it?
Gateway to Apshai. You used to
Gateway to
play that
Apshai.
game all the time. You probably don't remember. You did. It was actually a ColecoVision game.
Yeah, I mean, mine are 2049er, and
That was the shit. That and Jumpman
and
Jr.
Jumpman Jr. were awesome.
But to be honest, I think in your answer, it did change that video games can be stories and stuff like that. What changed my entire view of the video game industry was 2 times, and they're both Nintendo related. And the first one would have been Mario Party.
Yeah.
Okay.
Lots of
Maybe
fun.
Mario Kart. But between those two, it was the first time I really saw games that drew crowds together having such fun. Like when you came in, everybody's laughing, everybody's playing, nobody's waiting for their turn or anything like that. Everybody's involved. And I would say Mario Kart 64 over Mario Kart Super Nintendo on that.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But the other one, also Nintendo, is the Nintendo Wii. That is now like 20 years old. When we were bowling and boxing and doing all that stuff in front of my TV in my house, it was an experience like any others that realized that video games could go anywhere. And I was older at that time.
Yeah.
But I realized when those came out that we could have parties centered around video games that were active and fun and everything else like that. Welcome back.
Still the best way to play Resident Evil 4.
Definitely. Oh God, yes. It
Yes.
pisses me off that the Switch version does not have motion controls. That's my big thing. Rock Band is sort of like that for me. In terms when you're talking about like the Wii experience, getting a bunch of people together, each of us having an instrument, it is one of the most fun
It's
things.
such a blast. That was the Guitar Hero era, but still.
Good,
I
4 years of weekend parties just surrounding Rock Band and Guitar.
Oh my God, Rock Band was one too. I
So
still
much
for me
fun.
as the other ones, but Rock Band was so fun together, getting together and because we all wanted to be in a band, at some point, and we got to be, and we felt like we were good even when we sucked.
I don't know if you guys even remember, Guitar Hero had a world tour where they brought in their
they
drum
had all
set
that.
was pretty legit.
Oh,
Yeah, that was a good.
It was
time.
all those music games because everybody got to be a star.
Better
Yeah.
instruments too.
Yeah.
I was introduced to so much more music that I would not have normally listened to through games like Rock Band and Guitar Hero. So, good on
Oh,
them.
yeah, man.
So,
Plus, it trained your ear to listen to the individual pieces.
yeah.
If you were playing bass, you would actually, for the probably first time for many people who have never listened to a particular hit, like from AC/DC or something like that, and just listened to the bass.
You focused on what you were playing and stuff, which was weird because I'd finish a game and like, how did I do? How did I do? Nobody knew how you did. They were focused on their own shit. You could have been singing. And they were literally focused, like Gabe says, on the sound of their instruments and them playing and how they're actually making the band.
Yeah.
You mentioned the sad thing that the Switch doesn't have the motion controls on there, or they're not importing a lot of things. And I've always wondered why they don't make some of the controllers backwards compatible, especially in Nintendo's era. They released the games for these past consoles, but the controllers are not. It would be so simple. A Wii was a glorified GameCube. A Wii U was a glorified Wii.
Yeah.
A Switch, I don't know what that is, but it plays the same shit too.
Yeah.
And I always wonder why they don't make the controllers backwards compatible. That's one thing that I used to like up until Nintendo really fucked it up. All your controllers were mostly 9-pin connector controllers.
Mm-hmm.
They were the same ones. You could interchange them. Certain things wouldn't be available.
Yeah.
And now they're not.
Yeah,
It's-
Atari, you could use the Atari controller on a Commodore and stuff like that, yeah.
And backwards compatibility. But that's something we didn't really have. We had it for the Atari 7800. And we had it for the PlayStation 2. Briefly for the PlayStation 3. In the early days. In the
Yes.
early days. Not before that. And people complain about it. Now I get no backwards compatibility in some sense.
It's because they make most of their money off of accessories.
But that's the issue with it, I think, is you can't... If you buy a new system now, you have to buy a new almost everything to go with it. And it's not like it's included. Now, I can see where that's true back in our day, but back in our day, when a console was released, we got a game. We often got 2 controllers with it.
Mm-hmm.
We had everything to play. If we wanted another game, we'd have to buy it. If we wanted a third controller, we'd have to buy it. But it came with something, and they don't anymore. Nothing comes with anything anymore.
Yeah, even my PS3 came with the first Uncharted game.
Yeah.
Eventually, they release editions that come with those. But when they're released, they just don't. We tried to bring it back with Wii Sports, which I thought was brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
If it was not for that pack-in game, I do not believe the Wii would have succeeded.
Well, PlayStation 5 did it.
Did it come with the game?
We had Astro's Playroom, and,
Which
bundled
it's
in.
a fantastic game.
Yes.
And it is...
Some of us still can't get our hands on one. Even
Sucks
though we
for
have
you.
friends who work for PlayStation.
I'm so surprised it took an hour 21 to go at him after that.
Oh no, it's been talked about before. Trust me.
But
It was
yeah, it's
all
great.
underlying. It was subtext. It was all.
I was like, I don't even want one anymore, but I really want one.
But you do.
This is the first game console in history that I can remember since probably the Sony PlayStation, the original, or the N64, that I didn't have on launch day. Actually, since the Super Nintendo, that I did not have on launch day, with the exception of Sega, because I was a fanboy. I didn't have the Dreamcast on launch day, or the Genesis, or the Saturn. But it pisses me off, because even when I didn't pre-order, I'd go to Walmart or Best Buy at 12 o'clock, and they'd have some there, and I'd grab them.
Right.
And now it's almost a year later. I'm pissed.
It's all about them chips.
Fuck those chips. I don't believe it. I believe it's marketing more than anything.
What, you think we don't want your money? Is that what that is?
Right.
We want your money.
As long as that demand is there, people are prone to buy it. If you fill those stocks, if your shelves are filled, people are like, yeah, we can buy it some other time. We got the money.
demand.
Right now, every single one you release, they're going to jump on.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but they
You're going to
have,
sell out in minutes.
But-
Seconds
right.
sometimes.
but they also have a lot of first party and third party video games that are not getting played because of the shortages. So I guarantee that they want to have those systems out there, as many as possible.
Nope, don't buy it. Nope, not at all.
For your listeners,
Started with the PS3.
For your listening.
for your listeners, here's a suggestion. Because right now at all the major retailers, it is all about online. You could only pretty much buy them online at Best Buys, GameStops, Targets, WalMarts. My suggestion: try Myers. They get them in randomly, and they can sell them off the shelves. You don't have to wait for them online. Granted, the Grand Rapids store is in their home office backyard, but
I want to add really quick, this does not apply to the Myers in the Chesterfield, New Baltimore area. They do not have them. They do not get them in. Do not go storming looking for them. All right, go ahead.
your best bet is with the exception of the Grand Rapids store, because it's, like I said, in their home office area. And I was there last month, and they legit had 20 systems to sell. The East Lansing store, for some
You
unknown
didn't
reason,
pick
had
me
10
one up?
systems.
That's weird. Okay.
Crazy. Yeah, that's crazy. But yeah, that would be your best bet. And hell, if you're looking for a PS4 controller for some unknown reason, Meyer seems to found a warehouse of it. And
PS4
sent it to
controllers
their
are hard to
stores.
come by now, too.
Yeah, definitely.
It really. Bill says we need educational games. You guys have a good night. He learned a little bit. And yeah, we had educational games, but educational games are really hard to pull off because you market them as educational,
Mario's
nobody wants
missing.
to play it.
No, yeah.
Mario's
very true.
Time Machine, too. When they tried to do Carmen San Diego with Mario. Pretty much.
There was a Donkey Kong Jr. math game on the original Nintendo.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't sell, though.
Wall
because
Street
it's
Kid.
labeled educational.
I remember a Sesame Street game on, it might have been Nintendo, with Grover as some kind of space letters.
Oh, yeah.
game.
Yeah. There was a few Sesame Street. Did anybody play when they were really young any of the educational games? And did you ever have parents that said you can't play this game?
No.
I don't think.
Besides
No.
the Sesame Street one, I don't think so.
By the time they started making educational, I was already past that. And I wouldn't.
Well, there was
show-
educational Odyssey games.
Yeah, but, if I got anything, it wasn't going to be that because I would be like, no, I'm getting this fighting game with swords. I'm not getting.
But yeah, there wasn't a lot of that
Math.
with Odyssey, though. I was just curious because the age, if you did, and with the rating system and all that that's been put in effect, thank you, Mortal Kombat, which was a good idea, did anybody actually want to play games they could not play or get?
I think parents didn't want to buy games in the first place back then. So if they
Yeah.
bought a game, they just sort of bought it. But now you actually have educated parents that will buy a game and go, here, play this.
I mean, Nintendo, in a sense, made a smart move, even though they didn't have the blood and they were family-friendly during that time period, because there were parents that geared themselves toward the family-friendly unit
Oh, yeah.
over the violence of the Segas. And which one's better? Nintendo.
Which, it also goes back to what we were talking about in terms of about the parents and their knowledge base. This is like the perception of video games still being a kid's thing. that really messed up some parents' perception. They could not fathom the idea that a game could be M-rated, that it could have, boobies and, gore and violence. They could not fathom that for some unknown reason, even though it said right there on the box, right there on the back, Grandma,
Contains boobies.
Yeah, exactly. I swear to you, to this day, some of the greatest pleasure that I got while working at GameStop was denying kids buying M-rated games because they tried to trick their grandma that it was okay to buy.
I worked at Funko Land.
It was, yeah. Like I remember one time there was a kid was trying to buy the third Saints Row game. And the kid came up, grandma was there. I'm just like, all right, just so you know, this is an M-rated game. The grandma was just like, M-rated, what's that mean? I go,
Mom approved.
Yeah, right? And I told her, and I was like, it has nudity, it has, I go, the very first weapon that you can find is a giant, and for the sensitive viewers, a giant dildo bat.
Oh yeah, our viewers are so sensitive.
Saints Row.
Yeah,
Saints Row.
and I'm just like,
Row.
that is the very first weapon that you can get. And the kid was just, he hated me. The kid was just like, I didn't know that, Grandma. I didn't get it when I played it at Tommy's place. I'm just like, yeah, you liar, you did.
Yeah, Grandma, your grandson's a lying piece of shit. He knows. But they were not the first generation to have games like that.
Oh, no.
Oh, no. Our early games, did anybody play those terrible, terrible, wonderful games that were for adults only when they came out?
Like what, Custer's
Like
Revenge?
Custer's Custer's
I could never get my hands on them.
My brother
I think our
God of War.
computer owners, Commodore
Except
64 guy,
Leisure Suit Larry, that was it.
Yeah,
all
that was the extent of
all
it that I
could
ever
do,
got.
yeah.
I did play Custer's Last Stand. I did, because I had the Turbo graphics and I played a lot of imports, I had my share of adult games on there on the CD because they had a few of them as well. But there was one for Commodore literally just called Sex Games. It was a play on like the Olympic game ones, but what you were doing was giving blowjobs and fucking and stuff like that.
Never played that one.
Oh yeah, it's Commodore.
It's time to go
I
back,
never saw that one, man. Never saw that
back
one.
in, time to go back in time.
Right,
Yeah, check that
absolutely.
shit out, man. Holy fuck.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a ROM out there on the internet you can
Yeah,
find.
I don't need a PS5.
Oh, there definitely is,
I
man.
want that.
You don't.
Guys,
I mean, Custer's Last Stand was definitely it didn't really show much, but your whole job was to rape an Indian girl tied to a pole.
Yeah.
And that was it. That was
I'll
the
stick
game.
to the EA Sports, I guess.
It was a sport. It was a sport. It played just like the Olympic, like decathlon.
Oh. Just like it?
On a button.
It really did. It was moving the joystick back and forth. I mean, literally.
I didn't even get a controller for this game.
I mean,
I'm guessing this game could not be made nowadays.
it probably wouldn't be allowed to be made nowadays. And
Definitely not on PlayStation.
I mean,
Yeah,
well,
he's
I'm at
like,
it.
we're not.
I mean,
buying
how many?
That is the game right there.
Custer.
Oh, so you have to avoid the arrows too? That's pretty.
Yeah,
good.
because you're getting shot at. But see, the more you pound her, the more your score goes up.
I like that the arrows are going away without actually hitting you.
How many ways can you offend in one video game?
Right.
Let's
Did she
find
have
out.
bunny
God.
ears on? Looked like she had bunny ears.
They have a field day on that one.
I'm sure, yeah. And that was
You know, as
long
far
before
as,
the days of Mortal Kombat and blood
But
and
the-
guts and things like that. You
They
know.
put the custard in custard.
Yeah.
I don't know
Does
how I've
anyone
never
wanna-
thought of that before.
I think that was the point. Yeah.
that was cool.
Has anyone here played the game for the Wii called Mad World?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, that was
Amazing game.
as far as they go, man. That was a pretty graphic fucking game for that system, man.
Oh yeah.
For
it
fucking
had-
Nintendo, man, that was intense.
It had
Mad
it had
World,
Sin
yeah.
City. Yeah, it had Sin
Oh, yeah,
City
yeah, okay.
monochromatic graphics with
Yeah.
the only color being blood, and it was
Yeah,
amazing because of it.
that was fucking intense, man. I fucking picked it up one day, man. Wasn't really sure what it was. I put it in, and I was hooked on that game for a fucking long time, man.
There are some great games on the Wii that got people passed over just because they basically treated the Wii as a Wii Sports
As a
system.
as like a kids game or something.
Yeah, that's
kids
all.
system.
Yeah, but there were some amazing games on there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there's the Mad World. Yep.
Yes, there it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, fuck yeah, there it is. Fucking fantastic.
All right, so we'll go around because running out of time. We're not really, but we're running out of time on this. So the whole point of the show, of course, was how video games have impacted you in your life, what they've changed. What do you think you wouldn't have if it were not for video games nowadays, or as far as skills or anything like that? Or do you think your life would have been better if you weren't so focused on video games the entire time? Or do you think it's better because of it? So we'll start with we'll just go around the board with Gabe.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely helped me with situational awareness. I mean, I think you play games for so long, you start to approach things sort of as a game, and what could happen in those moments, or things like that, where if I do this, it could turn out like this. So you think steps ahead, even when it comes to these basic tasks, all the way to really important decisions.
I mean, now whenever I walk around and I see a crack on the wall, I know that there's a secret behind it. So that's how it is.
Or coins.
Right? Exactly. That's the things I learned from video games. So
where do you think your life would have gone? You obviously turned yours into an entire.
Yeah,
I mean, you're
honestly,
surrounded by it. It's great.
I would not have had I would not have a job if it weren't for video games right now. So, but no, I mean, even then, the just opening up my eyes to creativity, particularly on the Japanese style of things, just the creativity and storytelling, the imagination, all because of video games for me. So,
what about you, Brad?
I'd say fucking probably problem solving, man. All the games, they help you. I mean, it's just a video game, and you got to solve shit in it, but it does help you in the real world solve problems. It helps you realize that trial and error is fucking important.
I think it pushes you to want to solve problems and teach you a lot of different tools sometimes on how to do it. It may sound simple in a lot of video games now that Link has to move a rock, but at one point we were stuck knowing which bush we had to burn. It was
with no hints whatsoever. Just randomly burning shit.
You had to waste so much candle on that. What about you, Brandon?
Definitely, if you're open to it, like I was, it gives you a chance to change your perspectives on things, and the way that you play a game says a lot about you, and the only way to figure that out is to be playing games. So I may have played too much, but I'm also creative as fuck. So
there you go.
I will say, when I would be doing demos of some video games, before I actually set up a separate save file, I remember I was doing a demo for Infamous Second Son. And I was trying to play the game so that it was going to be, I'd get a good character. But every time someone came in and tried the game, the instant thing they would do is just try and kill all the innocent bystanders. I'm just like, you're messing up my game, guys.
Oh, no.
It's kind of good, trial and error. You got to think like one of the players would, and then you'll be like, crap, that's what everyone's going to do, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's why I set up a separate account for when I do demos. So
Smart.
It definitely had altered my life. Just seeing that you could accomplish anything with a video game. That there were worlds, there were creations far from books and TV that you could interact with. It got me into programming. It got me into literally everything. To know that, like I said before, I could create a game that was called A Very Bad Racer, where you targeted certain individuals. And to know I could create something so vile at the time because I thought of it. Mm-hmm. And then I went further. That just got me so much into it that you can do anything. I created a lot of computer games to compete with Nintendo when Nintendo and computers were there and computers couldn't do what Nintendo could. Because for a while, computers were way behind console games. Then they were way ahead, and now they're pretty much there. Really. All you're doing is polygon scaling anymore for most stuff, for a quality of game. But yeah, they changed my life entirely. They gave me something to do. They get me through the hardest of times. When I've lost people in my family, video games were there. They were something to focus on, kept my mind going and not thinking about things. They definitely altered it. So any last words on video games from anybody out there?
Well, I mean, kind of like you said there, man. Video games, they're a fucking outlet, man. You have a bad day, you come home, whether you're shooting the face off of people or driving a car down the fucking street, man, it helps you unfucking wind and just forget your shitty fucking day.
Helps you get out of the world you're in and stressing
Yeah,
about
man.
and jump into
Exactly.
a different world for a little bit.
Yeah, fuck
I
yeah.
agree. Video games, play them. That's the final word. All right. They are good. That's all I'm doing for the final word. I want to thank everybody, of course, for being here, because this was kind of a fun show. We do a lot of deep topics on here. It's nice to sometimes relax and go back to childhood and think about the games we played and remember them. We didn't touch on, there's so many games out there. There's so many we could have touched on that we didn't.
Oh,
So
yeah.
this, probably every year around Gabe's birthday, we'll do one of these shows. 'Cause
That'll work.
definitely we'll do a video game one on there. But I thank everybody for being here. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and follow on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. We're on all those. You can be too. So you can be notified of all our live shows. Feel free to always comment in the chats, because we will respond live to you on anything you say or afterwards. You can also chat anytime by going to earshouldervoice.com and joining our social network, or just message us anonymously without even joining. Or you can go to our Facebook page and feel free to engage in conversation or contact us individually. Anything you want to talk about, doesn't have to be video games, obviously, deep or not, we're there for you. On that, call into all shows. And coming up on our next show, today's topic was, of course, the Classic Gamer. Coming up on our next show is Reaching for the Dream, Facing the Reality. There is no open forum show this week. Unfortunately, I have to work, so there's no open forum show. When we come back, it's about basically what you always thought that you wanted to do in your life, but you were never able to do. And your life turned out different, but was it for the better? Was it for the worse? Are you glad you didn't achieve what you wanted, or do you wish you always did? What were your dreams versus what you're faced with right now? I want to talk about all that with you. Feel free to join us. Anything you have to say, we're very interested in. Other than that, there's not much more to say except for you guys are awesome. So thank you very, very much
Thank you.
for being here. We'll see you all
Okay,
later.
man.
Thank you for joining us on Ear Shoulder Voice. And thank you in the chat, of course, because you're also important. Hey guys, Keith Lippin here for Ear Shoulder Voice. While you're here, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and follow so you can be notified of all our upcoming broadcasts that we'll be bringing to you live every week. Or head on over to our brand new social network and website, earshouldervoice.com, where you can be notified of all our show schedules, suggest new topics, join others like you in a judgment-free zone, or be a guest panelist yourself. I had planned to show so many video game scenes on here.
It could be endless.
Like, I wanted to bring up videos of games as we were talking about them, but you were getting the sound even though I had the sound turned off, so I don't know why that was.
Yeah.
Because it was overpowering. Stupid me didn't think to hit pause or on mute on the on the channel until the end. I'm like, oh, I could just mute the YouTube. We're fine. Because I wanted to bring up scenes from a lot of the ones we were talking about, and of course we got like violent games in the end. That was good. But Halloween's coming up.
It
I'm
is.
excited for our horror. Jeremy, you got to return us for the horror shows.
All right.
Yeah, we got horror icons coming up, and then just Halloween stuff.
Nice.
So that'll be fun. We love Halloween around here.
Fuck yeah, man.
Yeah, I gotta finally dress up this year.
Yeah, all right. That's
Yeah,
good. We
Last
got
year I was dressed up.
Yeah, don't,
Yeah.
because if you don't dress up, then I don't have to. It was because other people were dressing up. Like, crap, I can't be the one not dressing up. Just like I'd have known all the video game stuff in everybody's background. I'd have been on top of that.
Yeah.
Definitely.
But that will. But yeah, you'd be good on there. How was it, Brad, doing a show that actually was not mental health?
Goonies
Oh, it was
2.
good, man. Fuck yeah.
Shadowbox.
I fucking enjoy the show, man.
In 3D.
Yes, I do too. I know. I love that one.
I
Keep
ordered
making those.
that from some guy in the UK.
Oh, you didn't make
So-
that one?
I didn't make that one.
Oh, wow.
No. He
Your-
made me a
yours are
Metroid,
really good.
a DuckTales, and he made me that one for $20 each. Yeah.
Really? Man, that's a good price.
Yeah, the materials that he uses, they're not as clear, but really good.
And sorry I had to change your name there, Brandon. It's not a turtle, it's a Koopa.
Koopa. Yeah, I get it.
I don't know. I think I would argue that.
It's a Koopa.
Okay.
It's a Koopa. Turtles do not look like that.
All right.
They have a shell. Just because it has a shell doesn't make it a turtle.
Italians don't look like Mario.
Right, but in the same game, you have the Hammer Brothers, which are standing on two legs,
yeah.
and then you have the four-legged turtles that have no personality whatsoever.
Graphic limitations.
Okay, whatever.
You also don't squish turtles out of their well, no, I guess they did go into the shell on that one. You kicked them. They were still a part of it.
I will say, did you ever like years ago? I came the idea that Mario, the first Super Mario game, was just a really dark and destructive game.
Oh, yeah, I brought it up on our last show. I'm like, it's actually one of the worst games ever made.
Yeah.
Every brick you break is a living person.
Yes, they are part of the Toadstool Kingdom.
Bowser turned them into toads, or King Koopa.
Yeah, he turned them into bricks,
Or
and
turned them
now
into
every
bricks,
time,
yeah.
and now every time Mario breaks a brick, he's actually killing a denizen of the Mushroom Kingdom.
Yep.
But you got to get that money.
Yeah, that
There
one
is
coin.
And then, so I feel bad for, the times that I went through, like, the underground levels.
Trying
Remember-
to find the
or
coin boxes.
just wiping out the entire thing,
Yeah.
because you could destroy the whole thing, basically.
Yeah, you were killing a whole bunch of little toads.
Yeah,
Mushroom
fun.
people. Yeah, it's literally in the first page of the instruction manual. It
Yeah,
literally says...
people forget that. Yeah,
Yep. Turn them all to bricks. So let's smash bricks. Basically, the instructions tell you to kill toads and hope for a coin. Or a magic
the wife.
mushroom. Yeah. It was violent. It probably was worse than most games today. They just couldn't show it. I think they should remake a Mario game in 3D. When you kill one, you see a toad splatter. When you hit a brick or something like that.
I'd be down with that, man.
I would too. Unfortunately, it'd probably get played a whole lot.